right, we are, and let me bring myself up into the view. Okay, perfect. There we are. We are live today with Natalie. Thank you so much for joining. This is Campfire 72, which means that number, which means we've actually been live more than a year and a half, something like that,
Wow.
which is kind of crazy, almost every week. Still cannot believe it. I see Irene here and Christa. Thank you so much for joining. If you're watching us, you are most likely on one of three platforms. It's going to be YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And we are live. So that also means you can ask questions. You can ask questions to Natalie about the story we're going to share with you. You can ask questions about Nucamp, and either Natalie or I can answer it depending on what the question is about. But please do so. Please engage. This is meant to be informational, educational, and if there's anything that you want to ask, please do so on any of those channels. Just use the chat window. All right, Natalie, thank you again very much for joining
Thank
and
you for having me.
being open to sharing your story. The title itself sounds amazing. Like really, like in a year's time, going from a coding bootcamp to, and I know we may have embellished it a little bit, AI lead engineer, but you're telling me it's actually very close to some extent. Um, but yeah, we're gonna want to know everything about how you went from the high school and college education to in being a lead engineer or lead product area owner in the AI space. Do you mind maybe quickly telling a little bit about yourself? Where are you joining us from? Um, and where, I mean, I don't know, where were you born and raised? And then we'll get into it.
Okay, I'm joining from Georgetown, Texas, which is right outside of the Austin area. So it's part of the Austin like metro area,
Okay.
and it's growing every day. It's getting huge here. And then was born in Ashland, Kentucky, and was raised in Martin County, Kentucky, and so it's in Eastern Kentucky, and it's famous for President Johnson declaring the war on poverty there. So my
Oh,
dad was a teacher and took his class there during that time, and they he was much older when he had me, so so that historical event occurred there in that county.
nice. Yeah. And I read somewhere, we did an interview and the write up actually that's available on our website. I read that, was it your dad that was a coal miner or maybe someone?
Yes. He taught for 17 years, then he went underground for more money because back then teachers didn't get any benefits or
Oh, really?
he
That
started
way
teaching.
around. When you said
Mhm.
teacher, I thought maybe he was a coal miner and then became a teacher, but no,
Mm-mm.
the other way around. Oh, wow.
Yeah. He when he started teaching, he taught in a one-room school, so
Mm,
very small, and then after he taught for 17 years, he went underground for 12, and so
jeez.
he did different things like ran the belt and I think all kinds of different jobs underneath there. And he was about 6'3", so he spent most of his career kind of been
Are you
over.
kidding? Wow. How tall are you?
I am 5'4" on a good
Okay, maybe I
day.
shouldn't ask. But that's nothing
He
wrong
almost,
with it, obviously.
yeah, he almost said 6'2", but I think he's closer to 6'3".
All right. And so, do you remember? I think it was maybe 10 years ago now when there was a big campaign um, to, actually make sure that every coal miner were given an opportunity to learn to code. Was your dad ever, interested or
Oh,
seduced by that?
he was interested in technology early on because he was also a preacher, so he would type up his sermons and things and the
Wow.
lists of who was buried at what cemetery so people could keep up with it and things like that. He used an electronic typewriter when I was in like 4th grade. So
Oh,
that's what I
geez.
learned how to type on. And then we
Yeah,
got a computer. I think it had 8 megabytes of memory when I was in middle school.
that's huge.
And it could play a sound file. And I was like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
If you remember Microsoft Encarta, like I have that theme memorized
Oh,
for
yes,
that.
Encarta. That's right.
Yeah,
I did not remember it. You just brought it back.
I loved it so much. And then we had that computer. We got the internet around high school, but it wasn't great because the dial-up back then,
Yeah,
especially in rural Kentucky, it was not
yeah, that wasn't there.
very fast.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, we'll talk about that. And we have Krista here, the hollows
I
of
guess
Kentucky. Yeah. Um, Let's talk about your dad's start in education and actually transition to your path from, I mean, starting in education. And do you mind maybe getting us back to, high school, college years? What did you graduate in?
I graduated with in high school they had two tracks back then.
Mhm.
So there was the vocational track and the college track. And mine was the college track where you took the advanced placement courses like AP.
Yeah.
Um, so I took like AP English, AP computers. There was an interest there, but I always felt a little intimidated by it and thought I couldn't do it. And
Mhm.
you would always hear these things like, "Oh, it's just for men," which is not true. But you would you would hear
Or
it
were
back
you
then a
hearing
lot.
that at the time?
Yeah, I'm talking like 2000s, early
Yeah.
2000s.
Yeah.
And then there were no apps. So when I went to college at Eastern Kentucky University, there were no apps didn't really exist yet. Like there
Mhm.
were no iPhones. I graduated in 2005. So then I went back years later to get my master's in education or master's in teaching to teach secondary education. So it's
Yeah.
like MAT is what I have. So I
And
did that.
was that interest in education something that was inspired by your dad?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And my mother, she went to college long enough to be a teacher's aide back then because that was what, and they would just kind of get married and raise
Mhm.
kids. And then she always kind of worked at different jobs, but she was a manager at a grocery store for 30 some years there. So she was kind of a big part of the community. She's retired now, but she still lives there.
And so, my understanding of how you started your first profession in education as a teacher was
Mhm.
you were teaching people like me a little bit, no? Like, can you tell
Oh,
a little bit, a little bit more about that?
when I started, I was actually teaching at my old high school, and
Okay.
when I graduated as a student in 2000, we had around 1,100 students. And then when I came back in 2011, because my ex-husband was in the military, so we moved to San Antonio, Boston. I moved all over
Mm.
the place. And then when I came back to teach, that school was down to around 600 and some kids because the coal
Oh,
mines had started to pull out.
yeah.
So the county has no hospital, there's no Walmart, no Target. I mean, you have to drive somewhere else for everything.
Mhm.
So yeah,
And so,
there was all
were
that.
you? So you were teaching kids, but you were not teaching English as a second language just yet.
Not at first, it was just English, and it was mostly ACT focused, like the
Yeah.
Pearson test to get into college, because ACT
Mhm.
is the big one up there, and here in Texas, it's SAT. And then the way I ended up teaching so many ESL students was I was up on the Kentucky side of Ohio, so like where Cincinnati is. I had
Okay.
moved over there for my husband's apprenticeship, and so I was teaching at that school, and a lot of families will stop there to live. They'll work there for TSA or for Amazon. They have a distribution center up there in Florence, Kentucky, in the Hebron area. So when you land in the Cincinnati airport, you're on the Kentucky side.
I see. Okay.
So
Yeah.
that's where it was. And so we had, I believe, I could be off on the count. We had 1,200 students, and there were between 60 and 80 languages represented in that school.
How
And
big was the French community there?
the French community is. We had some, but it was small. We had large populations from Micronesia
Yeah.
and from Africa, just different parts of
Oh.
Africa. And the
Mhm.
parallel that I found fascinating was my students from Africa mentioned that they do the same thing in the media to them that they do to us. And they say, they'll show the worst parts of where we're from and make it
Yeah.
look like it's all that way.
Mhm.
And that's not how it is. And they said, "Oh, miss, they do the same thing to us."
Yeah.
And then I moved to Texas and I taught ESL students here. And then I became director of the department at a large high school here. And we had 400 and some kids total on our caseload. And we had, I think it had a high special ed population as well. So we had a lot of meetings, and I ended up having to go to a lot of that myself. And then I had to learn frontline software in education. And so I had to train, this is for all the ESL paperwork.
Yeah.
I had to train people at district office for that, and the district is 200 square miles. So my husband was like, "If you're already doing this, like, why don't you go into tech?"
You are driving around all day, teaching others how to use the
No,
software.
just sometimes when we had like professional development.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, were you using a Blackboard or Moodle or Canvas? What was the type of
Google Classroom.
Google Classroom? Oh wow,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, nice. And we'll talk about that because when you joined Nucamp, you also became a recipient of the scholarship from Google, Google Women in Tech. We'll talk about that. So clearly, that was your passion. You've been in education with kids, teaching, and actually having a nice career progression. From being a teacher to managing a team, being a director of a department there. What led you to want to change things up? Why not stay in education?
Well, I will always have a heart for education. That's never going to go away. And
Hmm.
I like making things accessible for students everywhere. And that's why I love Nucamp's sort of mission, because that's what, I mean, it just hits home for me.
Hmm.
But I also just really did not like the salary of teaching,
Yeah,
unfortunately. And so I have, like, even for me to do New Camp and it being one of the least expensive options at the time, my husband was like, "Well, give it a try. We'll see what happens." He was very supportive, but it was a stretch for us to even do that at that time. And now, like, he's gotten a better job since, thank goodness. And then I have too, but I feel like I have quadrupled the money back that I put into it in that year.
nice. That's a good return on investment, I will say.
Yeah, yeah, it's very good. And he said, "Well, you got the money back last time. Just go for this next thing you're gonna do." And
Good. So, and let's say hi to CIBF. CIBS.
hi.
It's probably an acronym. So, if you're listening, please don't hesitate to ask any question to Natalie or myself. We'll be going over Natalie's experience, life journey, and so let's talk about. So you're making the decision to switch things up, and why did you pick coding? Why not another profession? Was it because you had that computer at home with your dad and Kata with Microsoft? Was it kind of part of that?
Well, that was where it all sparked. And my cousin Brian and I would build a computer. We built a computer together,
Oh,
and so
cool.
that was really cool. He would come in from the big city of Columbus, Ohio, about
Hmm.
4
Oh
hours
yeah.
away, and he would. My mom would send money for supplies to build these with, and so he
Mhm.
would bring the stuff for us to do it with, and sometimes he would throw in some extras or whatever, like raw material. I don't know if you remember that. That blew my mind at that time. And
RAM
so
material? Yeah, I mean RAM. Yeah, 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 absolutely.
the stuff, it was like the where you could change your cursor.
Oh
You
no,
could
I
make
don't
them
recall that.
animated.
Oh yeah, no, I don't recall that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I was excited about that, but those things were always in the back of my head, but then teaching seemed like the natural thing to do because I was from a
Mhm.
family of teachers and my sister's a teacher, and that's kinda what we do, um, is just teach, and then I have 3 total sisters, one of them is in computers as well, so
Okay.
yeah.
Did she get into computers before you?
We kind of together because we're a
Together?
year apart,
Oh
so
yeah.
I just
Okay.
never did it in school, and she had the nerve and I didn't, so
Yeah.
I did it later.
Okay, so that was really in the air, pretty much. Like there was, but you didn't really think about alternatives. That was kind of the destiny. And so, did you? How did you start then? Did you go online and start to learn on your own, or did you go straight to a coding bootcamp? What was your thought process there
Well,
then?
I had years ago because I've been raising children in between, so that's why there were
Mhm.
pauses between when I would,
Yeah.
I have a 19-year-old and an 8-year-old, so
Okay.
both girls.
Nice.
So those pauses for motherhood and doing the things I needed to do and get them through school teaching was best for their schedule at that
Hmm.
time. So that was part of my decision there. But when I would think of technology and going into it, like I had a blog years ago, and it was, you had to have on Blogger, you had to have some knowledge of HTML to be able
Yeah.
to even do it
Hmm.
before all the new web updates. This was like when Twitter was new, you would get the fail whale. 2008 to 10, I ran this
Okay.
blog and it paid my electric bill at that time, which I thought was pretty cool.
Oh,
And
you were compensated on your blog.
I what?
You were getting paid for your blog.
Yes, yes.
Oh wow. What was
I
the
ran
topic?
ads.
Yeah, what was the topic that you were talking about?
It was just
Education?
entertainment and
Oh
like
yeah.
trash TV mostly. But Juliana Rancic pinged it out once, and so then my hits went up,
Oh
on her
nice.
Twitter, and so I was amazed because it was about her show, and I was
Cool.
just like, "Oh wow!" And so then I ended up loving doing that. Then I moved back home to teach, and had a lot more responsibility in that way. And then I
Very
ended
good.
up
Yeah.
doing. I found
Sure.
this boot camp through Career Karma.
Oh, that's how you found us.
Yes.
Okay. So were you cruising the app, and did you have a conversation with Karakama at the time, or did they just? Oh, okay, great.
Yep. I was on TikTok, and
Yeah.
then I saw the Career Karma ad,
Mm-hmm.
and the girl worked for Stitch Fix or something. I think you've probably seen
Okay.
the ad somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh wow!" And then I started listening to their talks. So that was how it all started. I would turn them on. I mean, when I was folding laundry, doing things around the house, I would
Yeah.
listen to people that were already in tech careers talk about how they kind of made those moves and got into
Mhm.
tech. And it was fascinating. And so that was what made me want to sign up for Nucamp.
Oh, awesome. We have a question here from Darius. Um, did you have any computer science or data analysis training before becoming an AI engineer, or did you just go from teaching to AI engineering?
Just from teaching to there, but it didn't happen like overnight. It was like
Yeah.
they inboxed me for the job on LinkedIn, and it was a group of a lot of us were teachers. So they
Mm.
wanted people who could edit, who could do these things and make the AI respond in a way that is grammatically correct or in some cases incorrect. You know, you never know what they're asking for. It depends on the requester, but people who can adjust those things is what they were looking for. So we were like, is this a real job? We don't know. We were getting these calls all random hours of the night because it was a startup culture at first.
Yeah.
And our team scaled from 10 to 1,400
And so,
in
which
a year.
company are we talking about right now? Still the company that you're with, or
Yes,
different
this
one?
is Global Logic.
Yeah, Global Logic. And
Hmm.
so, I don't want to speed it up and kind of talk about and skip the whole boot camp. But what I've noticed is you started at Global Logic a month before you finished the boot camp,
Yeah.
which is kind of insane.
Yeah. Well, and that was why I was kind of sad because the honors project was due and I was into that, but
Yep.
then this whole new job came and then I was wrapping up being department director and so, I was like, "Oh no." So I didn't get around to the things I should have with
You
that.
still have time. You could still do it. I don't know if that
I mean,
brings going to bring anything to you now, but you could still do it. But that
oh,
was
I'll
that's
do it.
so. Let's talk about that because I mean,
Mhm.
um, you haven't finished your boot camp yet. We're May 2023, so that was last year.
Oh no, I finished it, but I didn't do the honors part. So
Yeah,
I
that's
finished,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, uh, and you're getting a call from a startup locally, or actually in Austin at the time. Were you in? Did you live in? Were you in Austin when you were doing the? Okay,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
to be a research and machine intelligence prompt engineer, analyst, and content engineer.
Hmm.
So tell us a little bit about that. Like, how did they find you? You were saying like at first you thought maybe that was a scam or something, but tell us about
No,
how that
too.
happens. How does that happen?
No, I thought the job was a scam because we were getting calls from people and they were just, it was all hours of the night with these weird phone numbers.
Yeah.
And we were like, is this real? Like, what's happening? But part of the team is in India. We know that now, but we
Oh,
didn't
I
know
see.
then. We were
Yeah.
like, what? So they just inboxed and asked if I was interested. And I looked at it and I was like, I don't know, because I didn't want to quit my job, before
Hmm.
the end of the year with my kids. They literally almost made me cry on my last day. They were like, thank you, miss, for everything. And I was just
Oh, yeah.
like, it was but they were very sweet and understanding. They understood why I moved on. And they had pinged me there, but I think the reason that and I don't know, this is just my theory, but I had heard Taylor Destin talking on Career Karma, and he does like unicorn finders and all those things and guidance counselor 2.0. And he's a personality on LinkedIn and other places. And so he made a talk one day about creating content so that you're easier to find.
Oh,
So I created a thing saying, I'm going toward this. I don't know what's going to happen, whatever. And I posted it on all social media and LinkedIn. And then
mhm.
I think it must have raised me in the algorithm, perhaps, because he let me keep that on. He left it on his profile because I was like, "Thank you, Taylor." I'm always thanking people because I think
Yeah.
gratitude's super important. And he left it on there, and then I had it on my profile everywhere. And it wasn't probably 2-3 days later they pinged me about the job.
I see. Gotcha. So, yeah, so there was scouting on the internet and using the content you created, and you had experience with that because you had your own blog and you knew the importance of writing content and kind of elevating your profile that way.
Yeah.
It's something that we keep talking and telling our graduates. It's not just about, and actually, it's not at all about applying, to hundreds of job postings a week or a day. It's about showing up and showing differently to a potential audience of hiring managers and networking. Creating your own blog is super important for that. um, we have a follow-up question from Darius, and then we'll talk about the interview process and how you got the job, but let's take those questions first.
Okay.
So have you had experience building AI architecture projects or building enterprise software for corporations or government? He would like Darius would like to build AI software for the school system and innovation tools. Ah, that's awesome. So yeah, I mean, um, you're there now. You now have some experience. But when you started, what was your knowledge and experience with AI and building systems?
It was mostly, well, it started even all the way back in boot camp because they said, what developer is going to be more valuable? The one who does not use AI
Hmm.
and doesn't know how, or the one who does,
Yeah.
and they taught us to use it even there, but not to use it as a substitute, but as a tool. So it
Hmm.
would explain why if we got stuck or, things like that in coding. And so it was really helpful. As far as my experience building whole projects at work, it's mostly parts of projects is
Yeah.
how it goes. And then they become something else later on.
And can you go into more details about what your work is about in the AI space? Is that something you can do without uh, divulging anything
Uh,
confidential or private?
I can say that we work on making sure that responses make sense and meet user requests.
Mm. So is that we call it reinforcement learning? Yeah, are you part of a
Yes.
reinforcement learning team?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So it's a lot of data annotation. Okay, that's cool.
Yes.
And so let's continue, and then we'll go back to the coding bootcamp. That's fine. Um, so you starting in May 2023, but very quickly you actually got, your role became bigger and bigger. Can you explain how the evolution?
Yes. There were 10 total members, some remote, some in office. A small number of us was in office, like very
Hmm.
small. Between the 10 that started, I was not one of the original 10. They started in March and they
Okay.
had to wait several weeks to have their first project. And then about 4 or 5 weeks after that, or six or so, I don't remember, the rest of us came. So when we started this, they call it the second wave. We arrived like late April, early May. And so we were bringing them up to 30 and they said, "Hey, by the end of the year we might even get to 250 people at that time." And then now
Really?
it's huge now.
Yeah.
And anyway, the way that evolution started was we had remote people, and then I'm good at simplifying really complex things for other people, which I guess comes from my teaching background.
Yeah.
So I'm able to break things down in a way and to make them more efficient and organized, especially on paper. Like if there's a schedule for something, I'm like, oh, that looks busy, and I'll make it look very simple. And so people appreciated that skill, I think. I didn't want to lead at first. I was like, I just want to be a developer. I'm going to stay in my lane over here. I don't
Yeah.
want to do it. And my husband was like, it's your calling. Everywhere you go, they're asking you to lead. There's nothing you can do about it. This is
Yeah.
how it is. You know?
Cool. And so how are you enjoying that versus, coding every day and being in Visual Studio or whatever the IDE is?
I do love coding every day because I like the satisfaction of solving the problem. Like
Yeah.
I don't care how long it takes. That's what I love. And so I just miss that sometimes when I get more on the administrative side and managerial side of things, and
Mhm.
especially like personnel matters and things like that.
Are you able to kind of do both? Can you keep, a little bit of coding on the side?
Oh, I do.
Okay, awesome.
I'll never not keep it on the side.
Christa is making a comment here. Prompt engineering is so cool. I made ChatGPT do all kind of things with prompts every day.
The definition I've noticed of prompt engineering in this field is some people get very picky about it because last summer they said, "Oh, well, you all are essentially engineering prompts." But
Mhm.
now it's become much more technical than it used to be. And now they're saying, "Well, that's not really what we do." And they change it a little bit, because I think as people are understanding more about AI, they're able to
Mhm.
dissect things a bit more and get more into which parts are actually the engineering of the prompt as far as the
Yeah.
machine goes.
And you're upstream from that. I mean, you're actually making sure that any prompt gets better answers, and you're part of the training of
Hmm.
the AI in itself.
Hmm.
Which I mean, can you explain what it looks like? Like, how do you train an AI? Or how do you? That's the human in the loop, aspect of it. If you, I don't know, if, can you actually? Maybe I
I
go into.
can't say much. I have to be very careful. I can say it's a it's a process for sure, and this goes with other things I've read in the media. So this isn't just coming from my
Yeah,
job, so
exactly.
I can say this. It's almost like training a baby and training
Wow.
multiple babies at the same time.
Yeah.
So maybe the baby comes out with better ability to speak, maybe the baby does not. And then we have to meet it at different places wherever it is. and work from there.
Okay.
I hope
And
that's
it's kind of
helpful.
saying, you like, it's going to show you multiple answers and you're going to say, oh, this one is good, this one is bad. It's kind of a, it's binary. Is it binary all the time or is it ranking? Like, can you say, no, it's already, yeah, okay. You have
It
multiple
it, it
versions.
is and isn't, not always, you know.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. And we have Sanjay here making a comment as well. Gratitude is super important. So
Yes.
inspiring on so many fronts. Thank you, Sanjay. No,
Thank
you
you.
rock. Um, okay, wow. Heavy questions here from Teddy. Let's get into those. And let's get into those since you're so close to that. I mean, you're seeing the baby growing and taking its first steps and becoming adult every day, right? You're making the baby more powerful every day. Do you believe AI will take over IT jobs? And do you think it's going to lead to people losing their jobs pretty much?
I think it depends on what field you're in if you will lose it or not. And I think being able to work with it instead of against it is going
Yeah.
to help you more. Because even for instance, my husband's job, he does commercial. He's like what's called a MEP coordinator. So he coordinates all the trades in commercial buildings. So when there is like when the drywall people come, plumbing comes, all that stuff, he has to coordinate. There's a
Yeah.
team called the BIM team that uses technology to map the building
Hmm.
underneath before it even starts. And those things are eventually going to start incorporating AI. So even in what they call trades, they act like that's so separate from technology, but this is touching everything.
Oh wow, yeah, that's funny because I was thinking about that. I was thinking for my son. I was like, maybe you should go into trade. And you'll always need someone, on the rooftop and doing those things. Like I cannot imagine a robot taking over that. But you're right. Many of the trade jobs that are more in management planning,
Yep.
that's going to be impacted as well. Not necessarily replaced, but definitely improve productivity and maybe and yeah, definitely using the tool.
Yeah.
Uh,
They're building 3D houses here
yeah.
where we live.
How so?
3D printing houses.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
This is crazy. I like to see one of those. Who's gonna buy that?
They
Are
are
there
they're
any
buying
buyers?
them.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, crazy.
The
Um,
printer shows up and builds the walls.
oh, and then second question, and you know what? Let's answer Teddy's second question, and then we'll go back to your experience with the coding bootcamp. That's going to
Okay.
be a great segue. What is the difference in your mind between a computer science degree and a bootcamp certificate?
The difference in my mind is I think the computer certificate from people I've talked to with degrees in computer science, they get a lot more of just the history of the computer, the history of the internet. The skills they're learning in some cases are on top of it and cutting edge. Some schools they're not as much.
Mhm.
So the thing the boot camp offers is, for instance, like React change while we were there. There was a drastic documentation change, and everybody was freaking out. That was we were all like working on our projects like scared to death, and Nucamp was able to go ahead and switch on a dime and teach us that. So I think that's
Well,
a
that's when
benefit.
we moved to the hooks, right? I guess that's
Mhm,
that's what happens. Oh yeah, yeah, remember that? Yeah,
mhm.
that was big scary. Yeah.
It was for all of us, but y'all handled it great, and I think that that's something that, like, if a college has to turn in their curriculum a semester ahead, I
Mhm.
don't know that they all do, but if they have to turn in, "We're gonna cover exactly this," it may be harder to change that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the computer science curriculum is based on teaching Java, which doesn't really change that much, and it's very much a fundamental teaching of computer. To your point, computer concepts and programming concepts. But the joke is very often a computer science graduate will not know how to build a website, but a bootcamp certificate will do. So okay, great segue. Let's talk about you're decided, you love the job, you don't like the pay, you're gonna get you're gonna get a career in coding, um, and so you're looking at coding bootcamp. So what was, well, actually you told us you found us via Career Karma. Did you look at any other coding bootcamp? What was your ultimately the decision criteria for you?
I had looked at Flatiron, which I thought would be good, but
Hmm.
the price of it was much higher,
Yeah.
and, they were more focused on Ruby on Rails than Python, and
Yeah.
Python in this area is very popular. But there's still a lot of Ruby legacy projects
Hmm.
around, and newer projects, I guess, too. But you certainly see Python listed more in job listings in the Austin
Yeah.
area.
That's right.
So
Did you look into ISA boot camps, given the financial strain that you had and the worry that you had at the time? Were you interested in those type of contracts?
sometimes, but I read some horror stories about the ones that
Yeah,
were not designed well. And I
yeah,
think there are better ones and worse ones, and I'd read some things and I was like, I don't know about that.
yeah. I'm not a big fan of ISA either. Yeah, for all the reasons that you can read online. But I know it's sometimes it's kind of the only choice people have.
Mhm.
Unfortunately. Okay, great. So you decide to enroll into the full stack bootcamp at the time. Um, and I think that's when we didn't have the first 5 weeks were on Bootstrap at the time, if I'm not
Mhm.
mistaken. So tell us about the experience. Tell us about, and did you take the web development fundamental bootcamp first? Okay, so you got started with HTML, CSS.
Yeah.
Tell us about it. Like, what kind of a commitment was it for you? How challenging was it? Did you do it in one straight go, or did you pause, retake it? Tell us about that.
I didn't have any pauses. I stuck with
Nice.
it, but I
Wow.
had to make sure, like when I was choosing the boot camp, I had to make sure that it was during my daughter's senior year, my oldest one. So I
Hmm.
was looking at the events and being like, okay, am I going to be able to do this or not? Because she
Yeah.
graduates on this day, and
Hmm.
and they did have a workaround for like one time, if it wasn't very often, and so that made me feel better because I was like, oh, I don't know, because every Saturday. So I would make sure that I had time blocked off, but if I didn't have something finished for it, I would start, Friday evening.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would be daylight still and it'd be 3, 4 in the morning and I was still working on it. My husband would come in getting ready to go somewhere and he'd be like, are you okay?
Oh
And
yeah,
I'm like,
really.
well,
So you
because
found the
when you have
passion, right? You
children,
you got really into it and you forgot the time.
well, and then when you have children too, like she's like, oh,
Yeah.
mommy's in there studying and then she went to bed. But like when they're in the bed, that's very valuable time.
Yeah. Oh
So
wow. So were you working at the time as well?
yes.
Yeah. So you are really
Yeah.
truly doing it part time, nights and weekends.
Yeah.
Wow, that's huge. That's
Yeah,
huge.
and I would even, like, have it in my ears walking around the house, like, for some
Yeah.
of the videos, I like to
Yeah.
listen and then watch them again. So I would listen while I walked around, and, I was always on. I think if you're just trying to do something, you have to really be about it, to
Mhm. And so you said that you couldn't finish the honors project, but can you tell us a little bit about the project you had? What were you working on?
I was working on, it was just called Page Turner 451. It was like Fahrenheit 451, but it was a library app inspired
Oh
by
yeah,
one of the libraries at home, but, like,
nice.
I wanted to make it mine, and it
Yeah.
was like the book app sponsored by no one. That's what it was called.
Okay.
There's a
Was
lot of
it a
people get
mobile app? Was it a React Native
Yeah,
app
it
or?
was React Native. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I need to get back into it and work on it some more. But I did do our other projects, so I would kind of customize them and make them fun, like surveys and lists and things like that, and sorting.
Hmm.
I would put bands in there and different things. Like that wasn't part of the assignment, but just to play with it and see if I could make it
Yeah.
work.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, hopefully we'll see it and you'll publish it for us one day.
Yeah.
We have that library online on our website with all the honors projects. We'd love to see yours over there. So,
Let's do it.
and you also, as I mentioned earlier, you also received a scholarship from Google. Can you tell us about that process? Did you record a video with us? I couldn't actually. I didn't look it up. But how did you apply?
The first time I did not record a video. The last time I did, because I am coming back, like I was saying, for the back end, but I don't
Nice.
want to jump ahead.
Yeah.
But I Christa was the one that
Yes.
was like, "Make sure you apply for that scholarship," and because I watched her Campfire actually, and I didn't think
Oh,
I
I
would ever
see.
be making one of my own. This is just
Oh,
wild.
gotcha.
But
Yeah.
I applied then, and it was they turn around really quickly. Like they let you know within a couple of days, what's
Hmm.
going on and if you got it or not. Even a partial scholarship is a huge deal. Like I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
Like that helped me immensely.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Such a great success story, and we shared offline that I may actually forward your information to our Google partners. They'll be thrilled to learn about your story as well. Um, all right, so thank you for all the insights into your experience. Well, actually, one more question on that. Did you make any friends? Like you were in a classroom, did you all continue together? I know sometimes some people pause, but what can you tell us about that?
I ended up continuing in class through almost the whole way with two people. There was
Yeah,
Dan and Ricky, two guys that were in there with me, and they were great. And we would always see each other and be like, "Hey, do you know what's going on?" Like when we react,
yeah.
and say, "Do you understand what's happening?" And we would help each other out in that way, or offer to. And so
Have you
it all
stayed in
worked out.
touch, or do you know
Yes,
what?
on LinkedIn.
Nice, cool, brilliant.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So let me look at well, actually, we have more questions. Let's actually take some of Darius' questions here. And as I said, if you're listening to us, you can ask Natalie any question you want about. I mean, you'll decide if any question is okay. But either Natalie or myself, if you have questions on Nucamp, we'll be happy to answer them live. Just type them in on either LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook as well. So Darius has another question: is AI engineering more related to data science or full stack? Hmm.
I would say data science because so much of what we do involves quantifying things that you don't think are quantifiable. And you have
Yeah.
to find your source of truth. You have to tell your story. You have to make it all make sense for everybody
Mhm.
else, or otherwise, they're not going to want to spend money on the project, right?
It's
So,
interesting because I would say the creation of large language models and the creation of the AI is rooted in data science and putting
mhm,
all that data together and annotating and training. But then the end user, and I would say even the developer end user who's using the APIs to call the AI, that's more in the full stack realm. Like
mhm,
if you're using LangChain frameworks to actually embed the AI into your platform, that will then be, of course, a full stack type of thing. But you're right; it's going to sit in between.
mhm.
Um, and you're very much in that data science sphere right now.
Yeah.
Are you using as well, you as a developer, and maybe part of your duties, are you actually also leveraging AI uh, through its APIs to create stuff?
Yes. And I
Oh,
can tell
cool.
you one instance if you would like.
I would love to. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. We had a visit come to town from corporate, and it was the first one because our team is new. It's been a year on our
Yeah.
project, and um, I was like, "Oh, my boss asked me to help out with organizing it," and I was like, this was huge and I didn't want to mess it up. So I leveraged AI to help me create the agenda, making sure that all of the talking points were addressed, all of the catering issues that might have come up, like all of the things that I
Oh,
helped with
wow.
outside of my regular job. And then in my job, I use it every day to help me create spreadsheets or anything
Mhm.
else. So
Oh,
I
nice.
use
So you
AI every
actually
day.
have, yeah, like you have it produce a CSV format or something like that. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
pretty cool. Um, so next question from Darius. I don't really understand it. I hope you will. Um, is creative destruction normal? I don't know if that's like, does that ring a bell? Like, what is he trying to say? Do you know? Me neither.
No.
Okay. All right. And then a quick comment from Christa. Only those that do not use AI will be left behind and laid off. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, all right. Oh, so Austin, I recognize Austin has been with us. I mean, we've been working together with Austin. Like Austin, tell me, like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and he helped with UI. He was also an instructor, if I remember correctly. Um, and I think Austin, are you still in Canada? Weren't you? Did you go to Vancouver? I can't remember. But the question, I'll take that one, Austin, and love to hear your an update from you. How is Nucamp implementing AI into its curriculum? In many ways, you've seen us kind of gradually injecting AI into what we do. Um, I'll ask you. So, did you use the debugginator on Discord?
No, well, I used it with Eloquent JavaScript because I went back when you added that.
Yes. Oh, yes. So, yeah, we actually created Eloquent JavaScript
Mhm.
entirely out of AI. So we have an AI producer who's helping us create our own courses.
Yep.
We have the Debuginator, which is kind of a code assistant, code debugger on Discord. You'll discover Astro, who's embedded into our LMS, and actually he's a chatbot, and with context of the lesson you're in, and can answer any question on the lesson that you're watching right now.
Wow.
Um, and what else? Yeah, we also we've gradually rolled out what we call an AI auto grader that helps instructor provide better grading commentary. Pretty much the one of the thing I can share behind that is it takes a lot of the work that instructor do is grading assignments, and it
Mm.
takes a lot of effort. And sometimes those efforts are a little bit short circuited, and you'll see a great job on your assignment. And we wanted to go a little bit further than that. And
Yeah.
so we have the AI suggest comments that the instructor can make on the assignment.
I
So
bet
yeah,
they
and
love that.
yeah, so we're doing, and what we don't have yet, and I would love to hear thoughts. We don't have a AI bootcamp or an AI course. And one of the reasons is I don't really know what's needed out there. And I think there's also a lot of needs that are addressed by just free stuff. You know, you can very easily take a free course that's going to help you with prompt engineering. But from a coding bootcamp standpoint, when you're thinking about what are the skills in AI that I need to teach for people to get a better job, I'm not sure we know what is the type of curriculum that's needed there. Because either right now you're a developer already and you know how to use AI, it's just another API, I will say.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of. I'm actually curious. I think you have a certificate on AI and prompt engineering.
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about that? Was it free or did you have to pay for it?
I paid. It wasn't very much though. It was through Vanderbilt University on
Yeah.
Coursera, and so
Oh,
I
it
got
was
that.
Coursera. Coursera.
Hmm.
Yeah. So how much was that? Can you share?
I think I'm trying to remember. It's been a little bit since I took it. I think it was like $23 or $27.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's like I'm not
It's.
going to charge 1,500 for that kind of stuff, right? Doesn't make any sense. And you don't really need more than a $30 type of thing for prompt engineering.
I think it depends on where you're trying to go,
Yeah,
like what you need or how deep you're
yeah,
trying to go.
exactly. So that's tough.
Hmm.
Um, and Austin says, yes, 4 years ago, pre-COVID, we worked together, and he's all situated and permanent residency in Canada. Great to hear from you, Austin. Uh, Send me an email if you want to chat. All right. And that course that we talked about, Eloquent JavaScript, um, we have to share, and we are shameful of that it's not finished yet because we actually created the cybersecurity bootcamp in between. So we're going to get back to that. And yes, so all right, let me check out what I would like to ask you about. So where what are the challenges that you're facing right now in your job after such a rapid rise? I will say, where do you see, is there a ceiling that you're seeing right now, and where do you see yourself maybe in a year or 2 years from now?
I don't think there's a ceiling within Global Logic itself because it is such a big company. I think there is a ceiling of like my position. So like
Mhm.
how much you can do there.
Yeah.
Um, in a year to two, I would love to be a full-time engineer, like software engineer. And I'm trying to get there using what I have, and I think that's been the valuable thing.
Hmm.
Like what I already have access to, which is my job, and I learned that I need more back end DevOps knowledge to really excel at my job and
Yeah.
to be able to take on more opportunities to help the team. And so, in that way, I'd like to increase my skills there and work on that in the next couple of years. And I'm not sure really what official position that would put me in, not that it
Hmm.
really matters, but I want to be. more involved with coding and more involved with the back end. Like I love logic and just things that just work. So
Yeah, and so that's why you've registered to attend the backend with Python bootcamp, right? Starting this month. When are you starting?
yeah,
Like 2 weeks from now or something?
the 27th. Yeah, I'm a little excited.
So are you looking forward to like 5 months of sleepless nights and your Saturday morning blocked again?
I've already apologized to my house because it's going to get out of shape, but I'm ready to do it. I also have been doing a Udemy course on Python, so
Yeah,
like to
it's
prepare
gonna help.
because that way I have something before I go in. Because if I just go in cold after that long, it's not going to be
Mhm.
great. So
Okay, that makes sense. Teddy wants us to answer his question. Let me pick it up, Teddy, and I think that's the same one. Yeah. Okay. All right. So Teddy is having trouble deciding which IT course to pick. What are your recommendations for high demand jobs in 2024? Um, what would you say? I mean, and you know, and I think it's probably in the context of Nucamp. With we have the full stack bootcamp, React Native, Node.js. We have the backend that you've just registered for, and then we have the cybersecurity, which is still in tech, but completely different type of approach. In your own perspective, what would you recommend for
just
2024?
from job postings I've seen, like back end is really hot right now, and
Yeah,
cybersecurity is super hot right now. So
yeah,
there are all kinds of jobs in that. And if you can get like a security clearance to do cybersecurity, the money is out there.
that's right. Yeah, I would second that. I think there's a lot of front end full stack developers right now. Interestingly, though, when you got a job last year, that was not a great period to be looking for a job as a full stack developer
I
either.
think someone else was in charge of all that because it was rare that they were scouting for literal English teachers at the time,
Yeah.
and that's just what I had. So it was
Yeah.
kind of just opportunity meeting hard work at the same
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that was great that you had that opportunity. But yeah, I would say I would agree. Backend, cybersecurity is super hot. More competition. I mean, anytime you'll find bigger opportunities, you'll find bigger competition as well. But yeah, either one of those two would probably be a great pick. I hope that answers your question, Teddy.
I'm laughing at Krista's comment.
Yeah, so Christa, so for those of you who don't know, Christa is not Christa, and I make
Oh, I
the
kept
mistake
thinking
myself.
Krista, but Krista,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So Christa is part of the team as well in curriculum development, a big hand in producing the cybersecurity curriculum. And if I'm not mistaken, no, she's in charge of full stack. Kelsey, also in the team, is in charge of backend with Python. Or is it the other way around? Krista, am I making? Hold on, I can't remember. Either way. All right. Um, so let's talk about the coding bootcamp experience a little bit. What were the most challenging moments during your bootcamp? And I think I know the answer, but I'd love for you to kind of can say it and share it with the audience.
It was when the documentation had changed in React that I mentioned before, and the hook started
Mhm.
and all that. And we had to make a project for the week, and they had updated what they could of the curriculum as fast as possible. I mean, this happened like middle of the week, like it wasn't a convenient day. And so it was the thing that it pushed me to is having to actually ask for help, which is something that's very hard to do
Mhm.
when you just want to find the answers yourself and not deal with it. And then I realized how powerful the tech community is because even on LinkedIn, even when other people are looking for jobs, I try to help every way I can. I notice people helping each other. It's just such a big thing in tech to be open to helping people because companies change, layoffs happen all the time. We
Yeah.
all have to be out there helping each other. So that was the biggest thing for me. I think the biggest challenge was for me to even reach out and say, "Hey, I need some help with this." Like you all encourage it, but that didn't mean it came naturally or easily for
Mm.
me. So
Yeah.
that was something I had to work on.
Was it what was the easiest? Was it easier to reach out to your classmates, to your instructor, to stranger out there in the community, maybe Stack Overflow or other Discord servers? What was the for you the best way to go about it?
Classmates for sure.
Classmates first, yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. That's great. I'm also wanting to ask you, given your past experience as a teacher and your passion for teaching, have you thought about bringing those two together? I know you mentioned Christa. Christa was first a teacher, then an engineer, and was kind of bringing all those two things together. Have you? Is that has that crossed your mind?
Of course it has.
How
Yes.
so?
I would like, I mean, I do see new camps job postings, just throwing that out there. I see all kinds of things. I and other places too. And it's just the only thing I would like is to still be able to be involved in development itself, even if it's small, even if just my pinky toes in there. I don't
Mhm.
want to get into like, because recruiters contact me with like instructional design jobs, and I
Oh
don't
yeah.
want to get like stuck in that area only, and
Mhm.
not be developing and not be learning. And I need to be actively learning all the time myself. Like, I'm happy to share, happy to help, but I just have to be still learning all the time.
Yeah. And so yeah, you're saying you're seeing people kind of offer you positions for education related positions.
Mhm.
Are you seeing recruiters reach out to you as well from an engineering standpoint?
Yep, they
Like that?
do.
Okay.
Yep, but not, I don't see a lot of, it's either it doesn't, I wouldn't make more than I do, or
Hmm.
like there's some reason that I don't go there,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
also my company is pretty passionate about leadership and education from within, and they want you
Hmm.
to learn while you're on that job. They
Yeah.
they want to know what your next move is, like what you want to do. So that's kind
Sounds
of a
like a
hard thing
very
to.
good company. I mean, the way you're talking about it seems really inspiring and cutting edge as well.
Yes, yeah, for
That's pretty
sure. So
exciting.
I lucked out really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Uh, so going on, continuing on that train of thoughts, you've had an exceptional opportunity for your first job. You didn't look for too long. We always tell students that the first job is usually the hardest to get, but once you're in there, once
Mhm.
you are in the industry, it gets much better. Do you feel that? Like, do you get, again, do you get more opportunities through your LinkedIn now than you got before? Do you feel like if you wanted to change, you could change straight away? Do you feel you could find, more better paying positions? And I don't want you to kind of, say bad things about the company you're at, because
No, no,
you
I
don't think
wouldn't.
that. But you
Yeah.
see what I mean? Like, do you feel like you're in, and now it's going to be easier for you?
Yes, and that's the biggest piece of advice I have is to get in where you fit in kind of, and definitely apply before your boot camp is even over. Because yes, it may raise your blood pressure for a while, but if you get a new job and have to finish boot camp at the same time. But it is a good way, because you don't want to be getting out with everybody else at the same time, all the college graduates out at the same time,
Yeah.
everybody looking at the same time.
Oh,
So
good point. Yeah, because you started in May, so
but
yeah,
I was hired in April.
that's right. Oh, you were
So it
hard
was
in April.
before school was
Yeah,
out, yeah, and I delayed my start date a couple of weeks to try to at least give a notice to school.
yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
Let me ask you actually. Did you? Oh, that's right. So that's also a great thing. You started on a contract,
Mhm. Yeah, I took
and
a
so
contractor role, which meant I gave up my benefits
yeah,
for a while. We,
that's right.
got converted in January.
And this is something you should be. I mean, everyone who's in the bootcamp today should be willing and ready to go to do it. Um, Companies are who are going to be interested in taking a chance with you. You're not a known entity just yet. They're probably going to try to manage the risk and maybe offer you a 2 months or 3 months contract. Do you remember how long was it at first?
It was, 11 months, I believe.
Oh,
It was from
that's
May
nice.
to
Yeah,
April, and then they actually converted us a little sooner,
yeah,
than we expected, so nobody was complaining there. We were just like, "Thank you."
yeah. But yeah, that's kind of a risk you want to take at first. Like you were leaving a full-time job with
Yep.
benefits to a contracting position, and were you? So how did you get to like healthcare? Was it through your husband? Were you in red there?
I could have gotten it through, there is something here called, Lone Star Circle of Care in Texas that goes through Texas A&M University. So
Yeah.
there was an option. Like, I made sure, even if it might not be an option that I would choose otherwise,
Hmm.
I made sure that I would have something, if something happened.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
All right. What else?
Oh, thank you, Sanjay.
Thank you, Sanjay. Uh, Question from Darius: what's the best place to build An AI community. Wow, you want to build an AI community. All right. What would you say?
I say a lot of it's already happening on LinkedIn and TikTok,
Yeah.
and Instagram. So just all those things, social media for sure.
I'm curious why you would want to build an AI community or versus joining one first. But yeah, I mean, it's
I think
building
maybe.
one is tough. You will want to. I mean, what you will. I will ask yourself what do you have to share that makes it so special that people will want to join that community that you're going to create.
Mhm,
If it's just a community of peers, I would say join one that exists already and contribute.
mhm.
But if you feel you have really something special to contribute and you're coming from, oh, you mean
Oh,
joining an AI community? Yeah, that makes more sense.
there we
uh,
go.
there's plenty on Discord, and I would actually join the first ones, the ones from the editors. I will join the OpenAI community on Discord. I will join 11 Labs community on Discord. All the big creators, the Google AI community on Discord.
Mhm,
But yeah, I would find all those Discord communities and join them and start to engage. There, what will be critical is engage. It's
mhm.
not just lurk. It's not just read. Engage, and you'll be surprised how quickly, if you engage and you're relevant and you're contributing in a meaningful way, you'll be surprised how quickly you're going to be noticed, and how all of a sudden you could actually have someone kind of saying, "Hey, I'm interested to talk about that kind of job or that kind of job," just because of the way you're engaging in the community.
Oh wow.
So yeah, yeah. All right. Well, Natalie, it's been a real. Oh, one more question. All right, we'll wrap right after that, I guess. So, question from Joshua: how much of your previous employment do you feel enabled your success alongside your bootcamp education?
I think it enabled a lot because I had to manage stress and make a lot of decisions every day,
Mhm.
and those are things that I have to do in my job now
And
every
that's
day,
what,
like a
yeah,
lot of
that's
times.
what your husband told you, right? You've been a leader before. You're going to continue to be a leader wherever you go.
Yeah, he was like, "You can't really decide that, it's not up to you," and I was like, "Oh, I didn't even think about it like that," you know?
Yeah, you're the chosen one.
I j That sounds so ambitious, but yeah,
Pretty
I'll
much.
take it.
All right. Hey, Natalie, thank you so much again for
Thank you, Ludo.
joining and sharing your story with us. It's, as Sanjay was saying, very inspiring.
Oh, thank you.
Um, Seeing you really go from education to a coding bootcamp to being at the heart of the new revolution of our lifetime, AI. Um, any word of wisdom from people out there that are listening and hoping that that can happen to them as well? What would you say?
I would say don't be so set on how you think it will look, your path, and be open to things because you can always change it once you're on it. And if you take opportunities that come your way, you never know what you can learn there or where you can grow.
All right. Well, that's very good. Thank you very much for sharing that. I wish you a great weekend.
Thank you, you too.
Enjoy. And everyone, will see each other on Discord, I hope. Looking forward to the next conversation with you as a student. Take care. Thank you,
All
Natalie.
right. Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
bye.